Welcome to the Invincible Innovation Show, the podcast for changemakers. Each week, I talk to the most fascinating entrepreneurs and innovation leaders about innovation, strategy, and design. Hey everyone! Today we're going to talk about a very special topic, connecting people to their purpose. Welcome to Invincible Innovation Live Show. I am so glad that you're here. I'm Mazor, Kario, product innovation and value creation expert, and I'll be your host. And I have a very, very special guest. Hi, Ginger.
Hey, Adi. Good morning.
Good morning. I'm
Well,
so
good
happy.
afternoon. Good
Yeah,
day.
afternoon, your morning. And I'm so happy that you're here with me. Ginger Johnson is the founder and chief connecting officer, and Ginger helps leaders build world-class teams through the simplicity of human connection. Wow, it sounds so interesting. I'm sure that we're going to have like a really interesting talk. We're live on LinkedIn, YouTube, and Facebook, and you're so invited to join us and talk with us and ask questions.
Absolutely, Adi. This has been a long time coming for you and me, so it's great to finally make it happen. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm sure it's going to be like worth the time that we invested in that.
Absolutely.
So let's start with something. How do you see the connection? What people needs to know about connecting with their teams, and especially right now with remote work? How do you see that?
Sure. How do we see connecting right now? Well, let's put it into three simple spots, since simplicity is part of our theme today. Number one, the world has always been populated by people working across the globe. I mean, we think of the shipping trade that's been going for as long as humans have decided they want to go from here to there. The first thing is I invite people to rethink how we're thinking about where we're working from. It's more important to think about how do we connect from where we're at. So that's my first thing. When people say, oh, I'm a remote worker now, like I've been doing this for decades. So this is not new, but it's on the collective consciousness. So that's the first thing. Think about what kind of work you want to do from where you're at. Number two, it's really interesting because, wow, the freedom and the liberation of thinking anew in completely different ways, in simple ways of how we can bring forth our best in the world has been really shaken loose in the last 3 years. There's nothing like some sort of globally activating event for us to rethink our humanity. So that's the second piece, like kind of rethink where you're at with the bigger scheme. And number three, keep it simple. Like what makes you happy? What lights you up? This is not a simpleton mindset. But simplicity is a great mindset. There's a difference between a simpleton and simplicity. A simpleton is like, nope, this is what I want and this is the only way. And simplicity is how can I keep this clean and clear and effective and simple? And how do I do work I love?
And what do you think when you're thinking about connecting? What do you think is so essential to the way that we work?
Some good questions. Great questions. Why do I think it's so important for the way we work? Connection is so many things, Adi. Connection is deep, it's meaningful, it's human. It is not networking. There's a big difference between those words. It is not complicated. It is, as humans, we like to complicate things. We like to put many layers, like this painting behind me. Like, actually, simplicity can be very clean and clear. So when I think of connecting, I think of how do I make it simple? How do I keep it simple? That's why we start off with three things. I mean, we could dissertate on this. Let's make it bite size. So I think about it in the way that what do I want to bring forth to the world that is easily understood and therefore easily used?
So when you're saying connecting, how do you see that? Especially in the context of work, we're thinking about connecting with our spouse, with our kids, with our friends. It makes sense for us to talk about connection. But in our work, we're more, I wouldn't say distant, but we're more official in that sense. And the word networking comes into our mind more when we're thinking about connection, which is more like, subtle, I would say.
Yeah, boy, you got a whole bunch in there. How many? We only have 6 hours for this today, right?
Yeah, more or less.
Well, the essentialness, as you connected in the earlier question, I think is a great way to think about it. How is connecting essential to us as people? I invite everybody who's listening, who's watching, to think differently about how we connect our work and ourself. One model I teach is self-team community, and I use it over and over and over again, Adi. I'm in the great state of Nebraska in America right now, and I gave a keynote yesterday to a auditorium full of public educators, teachers, maintenance, tech, everything like that. And the key is keeping it simple, because it's easy to get balled up in the complexities or the stuff. And when we think about connecting as essential, we actually have less stuff because we're more clear of what we want to do with it. I think about networking and connecting very differently. Now, networking by itself is a great word, Adi. It really gained ground in the late 1800s, early 1900s, as a way to build your social capital. So I don't think the word is the demon here. It's how we've chosen to kind of convolute it and think that it's this card shove or this invite or this follow or this push. If you're watching, you'll see my hands moving forward. It's this shoving of ourselves on somebody else, and that's never good. When we think of connecting, I invite people to think of it more as a magnet, as an attractant. It's marketing, by the way, it's communication, by the way. So if you reframe how we want to connect as a person first, then it will absolutely happen in everything else. I don't think it's possible, Adi, to separate professional and personal. And I never encourage people to think about separating that. Oh, this is business, that's personal. Really? Are you not willing to connect those things and put the humanity into the efforts you do, no matter what they are? I want some people to think hard about that, because professional is personal, personal is professional. You literally cannot remove yourself. In fact, you know this, Adi, the more we become more invincible, we become more innovative when we are willing to bring our whole selves into the equation. Is it a challenge? Is there growth there? Oh, yes. Yes, there is. The connector's mindset says, okay, that's growth. And I want that. So I'm going to figure it out, and I'm going to find other people to help me figure it out.
Yeah. But what comes to my mind is when you're connecting, as you say, like in your personal life, although you cannot separate, as you say, you're more vulnerable, you're more frank, I guess. You're showing all the cards, right? You open-hearted. Like, this is what comes to my mind. And when you're in the context of maybe what will my boss think if I say that? What will my team think if I say that? How would they perceive me in my position, in my role? What you see, like more hierarchy way of thinking.
I see where you're going, and I invite people still to rethink this, because the second we think we are in a dichotomous life, that we have to separate things, it's really hard to keep those interwoven. The second we realize that, oh, I'm going to be a better person, a stronger person, a more effective person, fill in your own blank. As a leader, I'm going to have more profitability, better engagement, more resiliency on my team. Oh, and how about me? When we know that the strongest fabric is really integrated with let me think of the right word here, with anomalies and unusual patterns, then we have the strongest fabric. To be vulnerable is not a weakness. To be vulnerable is to say, hey, I'm here. Tell me what's going on. Tell me so I can contribute. Let me know. Let me share with you. I think I'm a pretty good person, Adi. I am wholly unconcerned with what other people think about me. There are a handful of people in this world who I deeply care what they think about me, because, and only because, I know they truly love me, respect me, have my best interest, and I don't separate those people into business and personal. Does it feel different? It can, if it's not a regular pattern style. Case in point, I mentioned I'm here in Nebraska working. I saw two of my favorite clients. Yes, we have them. I hope you do.
Yeah, I do have my favorite clients.
It's not a denigration on the others. They're just different things rise to different surfaces. And I got to see both of them yesterday. I'm like, whoa, One of them has gotten to the point where there is genuine, deep affection. And the other one, it's growing, and it's like there's different ways we can communicate that, staying in a place where everybody concerned feels good about it. Safety is sometimes familiarity, but familiarity isn't always safety. So when I'm connecting, I think of those two things too, Adi, where there's not necessarily a line, but there is a cognizance, there is a thoughtfulness. That's huge in connecting. When I met one of my clients yesterday, she stuck out her hand and we shook hands, and I said, "Can we hug?" And she said, "Nope." Like, okay. Ask more questions. That's one thing I want to give the listenership and the watchership today, Adi, is ask a lot more questions. It's always in my keynote. It's always in my teaching with the teams and associations. Like, when we're curious, we're in that connector's mindset. We innovate. We become more invincible because we realize that it's not about being the smartest person in the room. It's about being the most curious.
Wow. And don't you think it's related to cultures? You come from the US, I come from Israel. I work with lots of people from the US, and many of my clients are Americans, actually. So don't you think it's related to the way that we perceive connection, and what is the boundaries, and like how do we connect really? How deep is it? Is it more like distant?
Yes is the short answer. There are this. You're priming your own pump. You're so right. And I'm really glad
Yeah,
you brought this
that's
up.
how I feel. But
Yeah.
maybe it's only me.
No, it's not only you. You're absolutely right. Every culture has its own culture. I mean, that's why it's a culture. At the same time, the world has always intermingled. And I think that's good, because that cross-pollinates, that refreshes, that resets. Sometimes it sets us on alert. Sometimes it makes us happy. There are so many contexts to how we connect, that we don't want to paralyze ourselves with it, Adi. And again, going back to the connector's mindset with that curiosity, when I come over to Israel, my grandpa visited your fine country many times when he was alive. He's very fond of Israel. And when I travel, when I come over and see you, I'm going to ask you some questions before I get there. Like, what should I be thinking about, and what kind of lens, and are there some significant behaviors for me to be aware of, especially when we are traveling global? I mean, I've been in a pack where it's been a bunch of, quote, ugly Americans. I'm like, wow, this is how do I not necessarily offset that, but how do I then use that to propel me to be more thoughtful and more kind, and not judge, but say, I'm not going to be that. I'm going to be this. How do I be this? So you're right. Culture, experience, upbringing, mindset is the biggest one. We are one of the few species, as you know, part of what makes us invincible and innovative is that we can literally change our mind. Our neuroplasticity is literally mind-blowing. So yes, it's all kinds of things. And that's where, when we have those great relationships, we become more confident in asking more questions.
Yeah, and I think that what you said about being more authentic, that's the word that comes to my mind. When you're not like saying, this is how I am in the office, this is how I am when I'm at home. So you're a full person with all your vulnerabilities, with all your downsides, and of course, upsides.
Yeah.
And I think it could connect you better to people and to what you're doing and why you're doing that.
Yes, you're 100% on target on that, Adi. And there's so many reasons why. I'll just mention three. Number one, when we are authentic, meaning when we are fully willing to be who we want to be, and that want to be is usually our best person, then we will both attract people and we will repel people. We have to be willing to say, this is who I'm going to be, and therefore I am excited about who is going to end up being attracted to this and who I will let go of. There are almost 8 billion people on the planet. There are plenty of people. Number
Yeah.
two, when we're thinking about this, think about who you do really want to be. That's another thing I teach. The who is always more important than the do, Adi. Everybody on this planet is capable of lots of amazing possibilities. So who is it that you want to be, so that you drive the what you do farther, better, you innovate, you feel invincible, but at the same time, you also know you are a human. And so bringing that humanity into things, which leads me to number three. Like, let's have some humility in all of this. Life is not a contest. Life is not a jockeying or a position. Your title has nothing to do with who you are inside. It's external trappings and identifiers, and certainly they hold some sort of weight. But at the end of the day, when we're all standing naked at the end and we're ready to peace out, like, that stuff doesn't matter. People remember, like, who's going to attend your funeral? Like, ask that kind of question.
That's a question that I have a very good friend. I talk to her each day. So each day we talk, and sometimes when we're down and there is this question, who would come to nobody would come to my wedding. We always talk about it because she has a very old, like, a mother. And when she's really down, she always talks to her, who's going to come to her wedding. And it's a question that we laugh about each time. But when you're thinking about it really more thoughtfully, it's like, who do you want to be in this world? What kind of a person you want to be to others? How do you want them to perceive you and yourself? How do you want to
Yes.
resonate in others,
Yes.
people's hearts and minds?
Yes. Yes. Yep. And that's that self-team and community. We can apply it over and over and over again. Who do I want to be first for me? Who do I want to be for my team? However you define team, and then for my community. So that's fun that you and your friend talk about that. It's
Yeah,
a
we
great
always.
practice.
Yeah, and we laugh about it, but it's a really good question. So if we're talking about being this more, like, more authentic and more of a full person, does it help me to define my purpose in life? Do you
Yes.
think that?
Ooh, that was a loaded cannon. Yes, of course. You want to go
Yeah,
into that just a little bit?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So how do you see that?
Yes. An exercise I do with just about every single room I work with is a visualization exercise, Adi. And I grew up in Minnesota. And for those unfamiliar with Minnesota, it's very conventional Midwest America. And I grew up solidly middle class. We weren't, I'm very grateful for how I grew up. And we didn't talk about mindset. It's not that it wasn't there. We talked about it as attitude. Now, I think those two things are different. If we think about who we want to be and our purpose and how that relates to who we are, then I invite everybody to think about what is the way that you can reserve time for yourself, get into a routine, even a ritual of reflection, and think about yourself and think, who am I in this world? Who do I want to be? It changes over time. Absolutely. So purpose is elastic. It is mobile because we are elastic. We are mobile. What we wanted when we were 15 is very different than what we want in our 20s, our 40s, our 60s, our 90s. And it's usually related. Like, I call it my golden thread. My golden thread is education. I want everything I do in this life to promote and progress education in some way, shape, or form. I'm not worried about what that shape or form is, Adi, because I know that it's going to work. And I know that that's my focus. But when I look at myself, I realize, looking in that rear view mirror, I'm like, oh, wow, yeah, that's always been there. Oh, it looked like that. Oh, now it looks like this. It might look like that. My purpose is what drives me. So let what really lights you up, as one of my coaches says, let that purpose really shine through. Again, you're going to attract people who you had no idea, like you and I, case in point, would we have met otherwise? Who knows?
No,
It's possible.
I
This
guess
may be
not.
more probable. So
Yeah.
it's fun to think about purpose. Like, oh, yes, I know what my purpose is. I know what my why is, Eddie. I don't have it on my website. I don't publish it anywhere. I share it sometimes with audiences. I'm certainly happy to share it today. But I realized this years ago because I did an org chart for myself. This is an
Org
interesting,
chart.
yes,
That's
interesting exercise.
tell me about that.
Yeah. So an org chart is generally an organizational chart of what the positions are as they're organized in a company, in an entity. And it generally starts with the top banana and drops down and who's underneath and so forth and so on. And a client of mine actually taught me this several years ago, and I use it for myself. Highly recommend. I've even got a video on it, a couple videos on my YouTube channel. You put yourself at the top, you're the top banana, and then I drop it down and I think, what is it that I want to do? So I'm engineering this, Eddie. And I think the purpose is in between me and what I do. And the first time I did this, like, it looked like a John Madden drawing. It was like, oh, I want to do this, and I've done this, and it was just all scattered and crazy. I'm like, okay, I'm going to put this away. I'm going to sleep on it. I came back to it, and I refined. I'm like, oh yeah, that thing. I don't want to do that thing anymore. Or that was interesting. Or what if I did this instead? It's the permission we give ourselves as connectors, Eddie, as innovators of our own lives, to think, oh, what could that look like? So that org chart, I invite people to do I'll send you the link to the video afterwards.
Wow.
If we want to share
Sounds
it, because I
good.
found that to be incredibly clarifying. Mine now has been the same for probably 5 or 6 years. I recently revisited it. I shifted it just slightly in how I think about it, but the components are the same. Will they change?
Mhm.
Perhaps. And I'm okay with that, because my purpose, and how I'm going to bring that forward, my modalities, if you will, of that purpose. And it's very clarifying. It's lots of fun. It's a terrific team exercise to do. But start with yourself first, and I encourage you to try that. So that makes it more obvious. It helps to, and I post this on my wall in my headquarters. I look at it, and that helps remind me to stay on track too, Adi. So if we ever feel like we're the, moth in a room full of light bulbs, like, oh yeah, I could do that thing. Is this the right time? Maybe I'll put it over here instead. Still going to focus on that. So you don't have to worry about ideas that you think are good ones. They'll rise to the surface again, or capture them in a book or whatever. But focus on things that light you up, and use that tool if it's helpful.
And I'm trying to understand what is the essence, what is like the context. Is it like for my career, for me as a business? Is it like for me as a person, what I want to travel the world? Like, is it everything? What is the context for me as a mother, for me as a spouse, for me?
Sure.
I
So
have,
great question. You can make it as, you can do one iteration, you can do multiple iterations, Eddie. So you could,
Mhm.
if you like to start that way, this is your org chart. I start because I know that that's basically my whole life. My drop down, education is my golden thread, and I speak, teach, and write. That's as simple as it is for me. Now, that's through many
Mhm.
iterations.
Yeah.
So when I'm thinking about my work, but I also apply that in my life, in my non-working life, which there's not a very clear line there, because I love what I do, but I do love to teach. So it might be talking with a neighbor about something. It might be the learning, and that script might flip, that it's learning, teaching, the writing. I love to write, both for all kinds of reasons, thank you notes and all kinds of things. So you could easily, and I have done this before. So if you're like, well, what does it look like for me as a spouse or a partner? Okay, I think that's a really great practice. You can make it what you want. You could have one big one. Here's a D at the top, and then over here, this is my work at pursuits. These are my personal pursuits. This is who I am. This is this. So it's
Yeah.
very nimble in how you want to do it.
Yeah.
What you will
Yeah.
probably find, and I'd love to know if you do this, what you will probably find is there are
Mhm.
congruities throughout that
Yeah.
circle back. It's almost like that chart that starts with one thing, splits off, and then comes back, because it's still
Okay.
all you.
Yeah, yeah. It reminds me like a few years back, I had a very, very good coach, a business coach, and now she's a very, very good friend of mine.
Mm.
And when she's just started, coaching, and it's related to NLP and coaching and all of that, you need to have a vision, and you need to go to 5, 10 years from now, and just understand what is the feelings, what do you
Mhm.
want that to be, what is the experience you want to have in life, and it's not only connected to this or that. It's like what I want to perceive as my present moment in like 5, 10 years from now. And
Yes.
it's really interesting to do that. And I
Yes.
want to tell you a story. Like, not long ago, I think, and I had this coaching, like, I know, 5, 10 years ago, 7 years ago, and I looked for an email, and I accidentally stumbled upon this vision, and I looked at it, and I forgot all about it. I don't have a good memory in any case, and lots of things that I wrote there came
Mhm.
true, and in this way or another. And it happened. I forgot that I wrote it. I forgot that we talked about it. And if I remembered, I didn't remember what we wrote. Okay, it was like amazing just to see that.
Yes. Yes. The universe is listening. Whatever your power is, like, we put that out there. we make it real for ourselves through something like that. And NLP, of course, is incredibly powerful. Like, whoa, anybody who hasn't done NLP in some way, shape, or form, because there's lots of modalities and themes to it. I laud you, Adi, for doing that. And I bet it was like, what was your reaction when you saw it?
I read it a few times. I was not, that's what happened, and I didn't look for this email. I looked for another email, and then I just stumbled upon it, and I said, okay, that's interesting. What did I write there? Like, what was that? And
Yeah.
I just started reading that,
Yep.
and it shocked me actually. Like I wrote the numbers that I want to have. Like I wrote things that I want to have in my life,
Yeah.
and it was like wow.
Yep.
And like even things that were like business goals, although
Mhm.
they change and I think differently, and I like to grow my business and do things differently, the essence of what I wanted to do
Mm-hmm.
like became real. So
Yeah.
it was not in the same context, but it happened.
Yes. Yeah. That essence you keep using, essential and essence. And I think that's such an important word. The essence of who we want to become is realized when we start with the vision. What is possible? It's actually the fourth part of my growth model that's on my website, gingerjohnson.com. It's the aspire part of appreciate and aspire. Unless we aspire, we don't. Like
Yeah.
Yogi
Yeah.
Berra is in the room. What I mean by that is if we want to go wherever we want to go, we need to envision that. We need to have some sort of visual. What could that look like? Who would I be when that comes true? And this is not about the external trappings again. This is how we're going to feel in the world, and how that will have, again, looking in the rear view, like, whoa, I asked for those things. That's amazing. And I think one great crystallizing moment of what you did, Adi, is that it was probably swirling in your head for a while, and then you got it out in that email. What that does is that also keeps other things at bay. We sometimes think that life is adding, 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 adding. We need to remember that sometimes it's keeping things out and not giving shrift and value and weight to other things that don't add. It's like you can only add so much
Yeah.
plate before it topples over. So
Yeah.
what we want on that plate is us. It's our life. It's the choices we make. So we can innovate better when we think about, what am I going to look like? Who am I going to be in however many years?
Yeah, I think that's what you said about adding more and more. Sometimes when we really want to go grow, we need to unlearn so many
Oh,
things.
shake that thing out. Dump that plate in the compost. Start over. Start
Yeah,
over. Yeah. That's
yeah,
why starting over can be really powerful too, Adi, right? So like, okay, I've had it. You reach your moment. Like, I'm done. The universe is saying, oh, I like this. This is the reset button. Yes, let's press that
yeah,
now. Because
yeah,
shake it loose. And I'm like, okay, I'm starting new. Like my plate is a clean plate. I've washed it. Like, oh, and I might put some of the same things back on here, but dimes to donuts, it's going to be in a different arrangement. There's going to be different priority because we are rethinking everything. Ooh, that's where
yeah,
we become really invincible, because we're like, I'm going to innovate my own darn life. When we do that, you know this, Adi, when we do that, it's contagious. Other people find the wherewithal within themselves, like, well, wow, she can do it. If he can do it, if they can do it, of course I can do it. Or I'm going to try it. That's aspiration of like, I see somebody else, or I can envision somebody else doing it. So therefore, I'm going to try it.
yeah. I think that what you said about aspire is so important. That when we do believe that things could change to a certain way, it's
Mm-hmm.
it's the must. It's the
Yes.
beginning. If you
Yes.
don't have that, it's like when I talk to my son and he's a teenager, and I tell him, you could do that. It doesn't matter if it's related to sport or in school. It doesn't matter. He always says, "No, I cannot. I cannot do it. That's my limit. I cannot do it." And I tell him, when you say that, you're right. When you're saying you cannot do it, you're right. When you're
Yes.
saying you could do it, you're right too. So
Yes.
it
Yes.
depends on what you're saying,
Yes.
actually.
Yes. And that's that. this is great. I want to do this again, Adi.
We should.
That's also part of the connector's mindset. Something I teach is connectors are in the mindset that they get to and want to. It's not have to and should. And you're right, can or can't. Both of those are they're stiflers. They are limiters. So I learned years ago from reading Dan Pink, a fantastic author and progenitor of many terrific books.
Yeah.
Like it's not that hard to shift from the can can't. And what he teaches, instead of can and can't, use will and won't, do and don't. And that's his material and it's great. And I absolutely share that. And then I created my own of like, well, we get to, we want to. It doesn't mean that we love it all the time. It doesn't mean all these other things that we start to like go down the rabbit trail of like, well, what about this? And what about this? Like, no, leave that. That's gonna be fine. Let's do this. Because life isn't about the results that we think we want to get. Life is about what happens when we put our whole selves in and trust and have a faith in ourselves that we'll make progress. What that looks like, it can be very different. And sometimes it's even better.
Yeah. When you're saying I will do something, or it's so different than I can do something. When I will do something first, you're taking responsibility, right?
Yes.
And
Yeah. Don't. And sometimes I wonder too, I haven't studied too much ology. Psychology is going to serve anybody, whoever has any kind of that. I wonder too, if we're waiting for validation from other people. Adi, if you and I are out for a walk in your hometown and we see something and one of us says, oh, I could never do that. Are we waiting for validation from somebody else, or are we waiting for somebody to course correct and help nudge us? There's a lot that's going on from what we say, because by the time it comes out of our mouth or our fingertips, our head, our heart, and our guts have already probably chimed in. And there's so much background how we make those choices and what we say. If we're going to be good friends, it's like, well, of course you could, Ginger. Where's that come from? Now that's built just to the earlier part of our conversation. What is the confidence in there? What's the trust? What are we willing? Are we willing to be vulnerable, which is simply being open? Like, let's reframe that, because it's a good word. It's a great.
Yeah.
Or are we waiting for somebody to validate that we're not good enough, or that the story that I've been listening to from somebody else is actually true, so I'm going to believe it because I'm scared of not figuring out something different, or I don't have support? So clearly this is a really deep well. At the same time, back to the simplicity of connection. When we focus on those relationships that are productive, that are positive, that are forward moving, we really want those. We can start by telling ourselves a different story. Of course I can do this. Your son, he's gonna start saying that. Yeah, mom's right. You're gonna get smarter.
No, he's a teenager. He would not say mom's right.
Because all of a sudden he's like, oh, the thing mom said, all of a sudden, yeah.
Yeah, but he will grow and he will learn, when I was his age, I said the same thing. So we're growing and learning.
Right. So you can break patterns or you can create patterns. It's interesting.
Yeah. So what do you think is very important for leaders to know about connecting and about being vulnerable?
I'll focus on one aspect, because there's a whole library. Channeling some of my favorite clients. One of the best skills, traits, characteristics, practices that leaders, and anybody can lead from where they're at, that leaders can work on, focus on, proactively develop, is curiosity. When we are curious, Eddie, we literally are in the zone of wanting to know. We are interested. We're not concerned with being interesting. Think of a toddler. A toddler's favorite question is what?
Why?
Yes, everybody knows this.
Yeah.
Why? Because they want to bring in information. They literally don't have the information that they want to make choices, to start thinking about the world and themselves in it in a different way. So being curious, I actually call it hyper curious. One of my favorite clients that I mentioned, who's here in Nebraska, he loves the concept of the hyper curious. to work on it with his team. Like, oh yeah, because when we're in one zone, we literally can't be in another. There's no such thing as multitasking. It's only scatter tasking. So pick the one thing out of that scatter that you want to focus on. If you focus on hyper curiosity, you are, wow. I have to tell you, this is where innovation happens. This is where invincibility comes up. Like, of course we can do it, because it's this, you start going from traction to momentum to a flywheel. And a flywheel is self-perpetuating. The more curious we are, the stronger we are, the smarter we are, the better leader we are, the healthier we are, the kinder we are. Like everything stacks up. So that's the one thing I would say. If you're going to focus, if you're a leader and you want to focus on improvement for connection, focus on being hyper curious. Tell me about that thing, Adi. What if we did it this way? How about? Start asking a lot of questions, and then yeah, let that permeate. Your culture will be better, will be stronger. It doesn't mean you don't know. It doesn't mean you don't make decisions. That's another part of it. But to be curious, to lead with curiosity is incredibly powerful.
Yeah, I totally agree. And it goes back to being humble.
Yes.
That
Yes.
because you're asking, you don't know it all. You're just asking.
Yes. You open yourself up and say, I'm going to be vulnerable. I'm willing. I'm interested. And that is something people want to follow too, by the way. People want a curious leader because, just like you said, they want to know that there is some reception to their ideas, that there is a willingness to consider, how about that? And that really is a powerful upward spiral.
Yeah, another thing that comes to my mind, I come from product and design. And when we're talking to like interviewing users or interviewing stakeholders, we are always asking more and more questions in two ways. One, we learn much more when the questions are open. And when I go and talk to people, I see that it's right to every people. It's not only in this context, because if you really want to connect to someone, you need to be very open-hearted and willing to listen really carefully and really be engaged in that, because
Yes.
I want to hear what you're saying. I want to listen to you. I don't want to talk about myself right now. I could do that, but I'm interested in you.
Right.
I see you.
Yes.
That's the right word.
100%, 100%. When I deliver my keynote, the ZYXs of connecting, the letter H, I go through the English alphabet, and I give words that are tailored to the room. And humility, humanity, curiosity, those are often some of the words. And boy, can you see the light bulbs. It's not just light bulbs that is, like sometimes the spotlight goes up, like, whoa, the bat signal just, I'm glad that connected for you.
Yeah, it's important.
Yes, you're so right.
It is. Yeah. Wow, we're almost done. We have so many additional questions, but
I'll just put myself over there. How's that? You'll show me around Israel, yes?
Yeah, we have lots of sun and good food, and you should come.
Good food.
And I could tell you how people connect in Israel.
Please.
It's very, very, very connected. Very.
Excellent. Can't wait. I look forward to that.
So tell me, where could people find more about what you do and contact
Certainly.
you?
We'll keep it simple in the nature of our conversation. gingerjohnson.com, GingerJohnson.com. My articles, blogs are there. If you want to connect and talk about something that's coming up for you, an event, a conference, sales meeting, team development, dinner party. I'm a dinner party host too. We'll talk about that another time. That's where it all starts. I'm also very active on LinkedIn too, and I welcome the connection there. I think, Adi, that's how you and I met, actually.
Right.
And very, very powerful. Like one of my LinkedIn coaches says, think of LinkedIn as your second website. So those are the two primary ones. I look forward to hearing. Just let me know that you said, oh my gosh, that amazing Adi. This is how I found out about you.
Wow. It sounds like I encourage everyone to do that. And it's lots of fun. And you have a great energy talking to you.
Thank you.
And you pronounce my name so well. So I have to thank you for that.
What matters in connection. Yeah.
It does.
Yes, I appreciate
thanks.
reaching out and extending the invite. Till we sit at the table together, Adi, I'm grateful, and I hope that you have a wonderful day.
You too. Thank you. And to all of you change makers out there, thank you for joining us. And if you want to learn more about my work, go to invincibleinnovation.com, and I'll see you next week with another innovative, insightful talk. See ya. I'm Mazor Kario, and you've been listening to the Invincible Innovation Podcast. Make sure to visit our website, invincibleinnovation.com, where you can learn more about our programs and my book, Innovating Through Chaos. I'll be waiting for you next week in our next episode. Thank you for listening.